The following video contains content that is the property of theoatmeal.com and Matthew Inman. It is intended only to be a tribute to his amazing work. Thanks for inspiring me with this piece and making me smile, sir. Please don't sue me, Mr. Inman. I'm a huge fan.
You're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you. I'm going to tell you some things. You're not going to believe these things that I tell you, and that's okay. You have good reason not to, but I need you to keep listening, regardless of what you believe.
Now, I don't care if you are a liberal, a conservative, or somewhere in between. I don't care if you're a cat person, a dog person, a tarantula person. Morning person or night owl, iPhone or Android, Coke or Pepsi. I really don't care. All I care about is that you listen to this all the way to the end. Sound good? Then let's begin. You may have heard that George Washington had wooden teeth. He lost most of his teeth in his 20s and had a set of dentures made out of wood. It's a disturbing visual. Founding father, commander-in-chief, first president of the United States, click-clacking his way through a ham sandwich. Except it isn't true. In 2005, at the National Museum of Dentistry in Baltimore, laser scans were performed on Washington's 200-year-old dentures and found them to be made of gold, lead, hippopotamus ivory, horse, and donkey teeth. His mouth was a petting zoo of nightmares. Upon learning this information, I want to ask you something. How did it feel to learn this new fact about George Washington's teeth? I stated a thing. I provided evidence of that thing. And presumably, you now believe the thing that I stated. Presumably, your belief in the composition of George Washington's teeth has changed with little or no friction. Presumably, next time you're at a party and George Washington's teeth come up, you're going to proudly impart this knowledge to your fellow partygoers. Yes? Terrific. Let's continue. What if I told you that George Washington had another set of false teeth? What if I told you that the other set wasn't made from wood, ivory, or any of the aforementioned materials? What if I told you that the other set was made from the teeth of slaves? Now, let's try this again. How did it feel to learn this fact about George Washington? Any more of that friction I mentioned earlier? Before we go any farther, let me reiterate, I am not here to convince you that George Washington was a bad person. I could go through all my cited sources and cherry pick arguments that either deify or demonize George Washington. I could paint a portrait of a monster, or I could exonerate a patriot. But as I said before, I don't care. That's not the point. The point is to give you an emotional barometer of how you feel when presented with new ideas. Because you may have noticed that the first fact about George Washington's teeth was rather easy to accept. I would even wager that when I told you the first fact, you accepted it without question. But when I told you the second fact, you immediately checked my sources, and you're now furiously composing an informed, yet incendiary retort which you will boldly deliver to me in the form of a sour, blustering comment on this video. And that's okay. That's all part of it. Let's try a few more. Napoleon Bonaparte was not short. He was 5'7", which is taller than the average Frenchman of the time.
Thomas Crapper did not invent the flush toilet, nor did the word crap come about because of his name. Houseflies live for about a month, not 24 hours. Humans don't explode in a vacuum, nor do we boil. We just pass out from lack of oxygen and then we die. Again, as you read these facts, take stock in how you feel. I'm guessing you softened pretty easily to those last few. Let's try a few more, and then we're done. There is zero evidence that Jesus Christ was born on December 25th. The Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist. 6 of the 7 justices who voted in favor of Roe v. Wade were Republican appointed. So, how'd those last 3 feel? Now, depending on your beliefs, I'm guessing it may have put some of you about here. At the very least, you can concede that it felt different to hear those statements compared to the ones about Napoleon or houseflies. Yes? But why? Why do we easily soften to some ideas, but not to others? Why do we gnash our teeth when presented with evidence counter to our beliefs? Why do we not only ignore this evidence, but dig our heels in deeper and believe more strongly in the opposing arguments? Why would providing more evidence make someone less likely to believe in an idea? Seems backwards and bad bonkers to me. Well, turns out that bad bonkers has a name in the world of neuroscience. It's called the backfire effect, and it's a well-documented psychological behavior. A few years ago, at the University of Southern California's Brain and Creativity Institute, a study was completed where participants were put into an MRI machine. Once inside, they were presented with counter-arguments to strongly held political beliefs. A few examples, quote, laws restricting gun ownership should be made more restrictive. Quote, gay marriage should not be legalized. As participants were read these counter-arguments, various parts of their brains were scanned for activity. What the study revealed is that the same part of the brain that responds to a physical threat responds to an intellectual one. This area of the brain is known as the amygdala. Fortunately, it makes us biologically wired to react to threatening information the same way we'd react to being attacked by a predator. From an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense. If you were a caveman and another caveman threw a boulder at your head, you wouldn't react by logically debating the pros and cons of getting brained. Core beliefs are those beliefs that people cherish the most deeply. They usually develop from childhood and are compounded by life experiences. Core beliefs are inflexible, rigid, and incredibly sensitive to being challenged. When I told you George Washington's dentures were made from animal bones, it probably didn't ruffle many feathers. But when I suggested they were made from slave teeth, I'm guessing it caused some strife with some of you. There are obvious cultural reasons for this. Slavery is a sensitive, hot-button issue, but there are biological reasons as well. The amygdala of your brain is screaming battle stations. Some of you may have held the worldview that George Washington is a patriot and a hero. By presenting negative information about him, it challenged that worldview. Your brain loves consistency. It builds a worldview like we build a house. It has a foundation and a frame, windows and doors, and it knows exactly how everything fits together. But if a new piece of information is introduced that doesn't fit, the whole house falls apart. Your brain protects you by rejecting that piece. And then it builds a fence and a moat, and it refuses to let in any visitors. This is why we have the backfire effect. It's a biological way of protecting a worldview. Just remember that your worldview isn't a perfect house that was built to last forever. It's a cheap condo, and over time, most of it'll turn to So, what do we do about this? Some of you have probably been nodding along in agreement, waiting for me to deliver a series of clever, combative ways to offset the backfire effect. The disappointing truth is,
then I don't have much advice for you. I don't have a way to change the behavior of 7.5 billion people carrying their beliefs around like precious gems wrapped in hand grenades. Sure, there are ways of changing people's minds that are more effective than others, but ultimately, they all fall short. This is compounded by the internet, where anything can be cited as a source, and every disagreement devolves into a room full of orangutans throwing feces at one another. The best I can do is make you aware of it, so you can identify the backfire effect in your own brain. Which isn't easy. The mind can't separate the emotional cortex from the logical one. And one could argue that this emotional underbelly is what makes us human, but I would argue that it's also what makes us animals. I sometimes pretend that the amygdala of my brain is my pinky toe. When a core belief is challenged, I imagine it yelling insane things at me. I let it yell. I let it have its moment. I let the emotional cortex fight its little fight, and then I listen, and then I change. Because this universe we live in is achingly beautiful. We're all in it together. We're all going in the same direction. I'm not here to take control of the wheel or tell you what to believe. I'm just here to tell you that it's okay to stop, to listen, to change. Thank you for checking out my reading of You're Not Going to Believe What I'm About to Tell You by theoatmeal.com. All of the dialogue, concepts, and content within this video are the sole property of theoatmeal.com and Matthew Inman, and all rights and ownership remain with him. When I first saw this piece published, I was extremely moved, and it truly spoke to my core beliefs, and I felt compelled to create this homage to the work. I would encourage you to go to theoatmeal.com and read the original complete work for yourself. There's some really poignant graphics in there that truly help tell the story in a more complete and more humorous way than I ever could. Thank you, Matthew Inman, for creating this piece, which inspired me to pay tribute to it. If you did like the video, I would ask you to please hit the like button, and of course consider subscribing and coming along with us on the channel. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the road.